Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
This time, let's turn attention to business profitability and environmental responsibility. Now, these are two critical issues, but sometimes there's a conflict. How do we take away that conflict to ensure that business profitability does not happen at the expense of the environment? Joining us on this conversation virtually is Ambassador Obuesi Phillips, who is environmental expert, and we're talking towards how businesses can have practices that ensure their profitability while also being responsible to the environment. Many thanks for joining us, Ambassador Obuesi Phillips, who is also the president and CEO Sweep Foundation. Good morning.
Good morning, dear. How are you today?
Fine. How are you too?
We're doing great, thank you.
Good to know, because we intend to have a very wonderful conversation with you. All right, so talking about business profitability and environmental responsibility, sometimes these two concepts do not fall in the same conversation because they conflict. But is there a way to make it happen? Let's first of all understand these two, how they can marry.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll go straight to the point. But I think before I go in, I don't know if you will permit me to weigh in on one of a question that your anchor asked the previous guest you had about what can be done in the interim to get food prices and the economy working, especially in terms of food availability. You see, I have a suggestion while listening to that interview. I think where we have this challenge is in terms of the Nigerian youth that have the energy straying away from agriculture. Our leaders over the years have modeled lifestyles that are outside the box of agriculture. They have modeled a kind of lifestyles and businesses that includes all forms of businesses outside agriculture, and our youths are not thinking that way, into the extent that we are no longer productive in terms of agriculture. I would want to suggest to the federal government, for now, according to my views, the National Youth Service Corps, for me, we may have to think it a little, tweak it a little, to become a kind of National Youth Farmers Corps. Compulsory agricultural involvement for our young people. We can't have a nation
Much,
with
Ambassador
so much.
Obuesi, for your contribution. We would engage that suggestion of yours maybe before we close the show. But to
Thank you very
the
much.
focus of our
Let's come straight
conversation
to
now,
the.
which is
Yes,
on
thank you.
business profitability and environmental responsibility. Now, while you were even making your suggestion, you talked about modeling the kind of work that have been modeled, or the kind of professions that have been modeled to the youth. So let's look at business models that support environmental responsibility or ensure that the business is responsible to the environment while it is also profitable.
Thank you very much. Now, businesses over time in Nigeria, by reason of our socio-economic development, now prioritizes profitability far and above social impact. I have seen that situation across board. I've seen it in the in the telecommunication sector. I've seen it in the banking sector. In banking, profitability comes to about number 3 in terms of ranking of priorities for the reasons for the establishment of a bank. Profitability is not number 1. It is a service to the nation, to the people. It catalyzes the economy and enhances trade that energizes and boosts the economy. But you see, in Nigeria today, every sector, including the government, prioritizes revenue generation. And since the federal government, all they think about is revenue generation, the state government, members of the House, you get to the House of Representatives, the Senate, and everywhere, everybody is doing business for profit. At the end, we prioritize profitability above social impact. That is why we have that conflict. In Nigeria, social impact has been subdued. But glory be to God, for some time now, the buzzword is sustainability. And sustainability is talking about how to exploit the resources, our resources presently, how the present generation can exploit our natural resources, having the future generation in mind. So I think the challenge is the business model that we have modeled over the years that prioritizes profitability. That is why we have the conflict. But to the glory of God, for some time now, the buzzword is moving towards sustainability. And businesses must begin to think and integrate the concepts and the principles of sustainability into their business environment. I think that is why we have the challenge, because our leaders, government, business leaders, religious leaders, all forms of leaders have modeled revenue generation and money making, profit making, high and above impact making.
All right, Mr. Phillips, good to see you again. May I point your attention to something crucial now, which is the fact that business owners are going through hard times as we speak, which you're aware of. Now, instead of thinking of profitability, in fact, most businesses now are thinking of survival, given the inflation rate, the cost of doing businesses, and the business environment. Now, how challenging it is to draw a balance between profitability and environmental responsibility, given the kind of realities that businesses are going through, business owners are going through at this crucial time. Talk to us, please.
Yes, I run a business myself, and I understand what challenges business owners go through in Nigeria. And I think, like I said earlier, it has to do with our business models. But you see, unless we begin to organize businesses in a way that it is dependent on creativity and innovation, the reason why we have the conflict, the reason why we are not able, the reason why we are struggling to survive is because our businesses are modeled with profit in mind. When we develop businesses that are social impact oriented, then you find out, because those that are in the petroleum sector, if they are not profit oriented, now profit is very important. We cannot gainsay that because I run a business. But you see, when everyone is profit oriented, then no one, because if I decide to do my business or to organize my business in a way that it will have social impact and it will be able to help the community or the state, you find out what of the other people. So when the people operating in this transport sector decide to be humane in any form, what of they need fuel, they need diesel. For us in the waste and environment sector, Diesel is very strategic to us because the PHCN is not entirely available, despite their band A, band B, band C strategies. So what I'm trying to say is that for now, survival is the intent. I was in a workshop where they were talking about employee benefits and things like that. And somebody raised up his hand and said, the business has not survived in the first place. The business has not survived in the first place, and we are talking about some other benefits, that taxation and things like that. So I think the most critical thing is for the government, because I wonder why or how the government will presume that all is well when the people who manage the economy are not doing the right thing. So for now, business survival is the utmost thing that is in the mind of everybody. So I am looking forward to a time when the government, through its policies, will enhance business operations in the country.
What you've talked about now seems to suggest businesses embarking on corporate social responsibility as a way of paying attention to the needs of the environment. But you've talked about the buzzword right now being sustainability. And when we talk about sustainable business models, now what the world is looking at is a shift from linear economy to secular economy where there is recycling and reduction of waste. Could you speak more to that and how businesses in Nigeria and even Africa can key into that model?
I think just like we have agreed that it is the buzzword for now, excuse me, sorry. Since we have agreed that it is the buzzword for now, the time is coming and it is very near. It is now that when businesses fail, business owners, corporate and small scale businesses fail to integrate the concepts of circularity into their product design, when corporate organizations fail to integrate sustainability into their business models, I think such businesses will run out of space, will be run out of space. So what is necessary now is for people going into business to understand that there is a new orientation, there's a new dimension. Just like you mentioned, we have transitioned and we are still transitioning from a linear economy that presupposes produce, use, and discard or dispose to a more circular economy that tries to close the loop so that when a product comes to the end of its lifespan, it can be recycled, it can be reused or repurposed into a resource for another product. That is what the principles of circularity envisages, and that is where we are going. And the principles of sustainability, so that we do not exploit the Earth's resources in a way that jeopardizes the interest of the future generation. These two key principles they become common denominator for any business that is going to operate anywhere globally. So I will encourage everyone that is thinking business, including media houses, media organizations like your own, to start thinking sustainability, to start thinking circularity. That is the way to go. And that is the only way we are able to manage not just our waste, but to manage our environment so that we do not jeopardize the interests of the future generations.
Now, I would like you to shed more light on some of the social responsibilities expected of businesses and what would be the impact of that on the society. Then, and also, I would like you to look at the part of sustainability. What kind of framework can be put in place to ensure this kind of projects are sustainable?
Please come again.
I'm talking about the social responsibilities expected of businesses. We talked about, the need for businesses to engage in what you call corporate social responsibility. So I'm saying you should shed more light on some of these environmental responsibilities or social responsibilities expected of businesses, and also look at how sustainable some of these projects on the part of these businesses, what kind of framework can be put in place to ensure that these projects are sustainable.
Well, business organizations ordinarily, we have agreed, owe it to their immediate environment to be involved in the socio-economic development of their locations to help increase the human environment from where they operate. So that is given. So you have asked what are these sustainable initiatives that they can be engaged in. Number one, it is critical to fund and support the environmental well-being of the communities where you operate. Let's give, for an instance, those operating in the Niger Delta, in oil-bearing communities, they owe it as a duty to manage their facilities and their production lines in a way that it does not jeopardize the existence of the communities. That is number one. So they can also get involved in funding education, subsidizing education for community members. They can get involved in clean up activities. They should be involved in cleanup, sensitization, awareness, advocacy for the environmental enhancement of their immediate communities from where they operate. These are some of the engagements they can be involved with. Why? Because they operate from that community, and the general well-being of that community will cascade down to them, and they can present their activities in this line as evidence that they are socially responsible, that they are a social responsible organization.
I'd like us to get back to the circular economy model for businesses. Why do you think so many businesses are not yet in that model or not yet using that model? Is it about the cost to transition, or it's something to do with having the technical knowledge?
No, I don't think it has to do with not having the technical knowledge. And also, I don't think it has to do with cost. It has to do with the fact that, you see, there is no offense where there is no law. And some of these issues are some, how to speak, new concepts that our laws never envisaged. So the people tend to ignore it because there is not going to be repercussion for it. You understand me? I know, as a matter of fact, that now there is, for example, plastic waste policy that is coming up. Even in Lagos, it is still a draft document. It is still, I think, at the State House of Assembly level, there is a national plastic waste policy. Without such policies in place, people will live and act irresponsibly. But now that we have such acts coming on, and Lagos will soon make it into a law, then people can now be held responsible. So people act the way they act presently, or corporate organizations act the way they act presently, because they know nobody is going to hold them responsible. They know what the issues are. They understand, they have the technical knowledge, because workshops and conferences go on day in, day out on the subject matter. So the people know, the corporate organizations are aware. And they also have the resources, because when they design their projects or their programs or their products and services, at the inception, they ought to integrate these concepts into their products and services design. But they don't do it because nobody is going to hold them responsible for that. When you talk about circular products, I have seen some producers of products in plastic packaging not refusing or ignoring, despite the fact that they understand the necessity for it, yet they deliberately ignore. Imputing, I still see green bottles, PET bottles that are green in nature. I still see PET bottles that are brown in nature. I still see PET bottles that are black in nature, and these are very difficult to recycle. So why do producers still do that? It is not that they don't have the means. In fact, it is even costlier to color the bottle. It is not that they don't have the means. It is not that they lack the technical know-how. But because they know that in Nigeria anything goes, and definitely nobody is going to hold them responsible for that. So they continue in that. So I will refuse that it has to do with lack of technical know-how. I refuse also that it is lack of finances to do the right thing. No, it is for the fact that they know that nobody is going to hold them responsible.
About being responsible, what kind of framework would enable these businesses key into sustainability practices? You talked about where the absence of the law is, then of course there is no crime, maybe because the businesses are not held accountable. But on the side of the regulator, on the side of the government, and certain infrastructure that should be in place, what do we need to make this possible for businesses?
I have noticed over time working in this sector that government, except for policies that withdraw in funds, except for policies that will rake in revenue, when government comes up with diverse policies, they do not follow up on them. They do not. I have seen it. I have seen policies. I have seen the Nigerian police ignorant of what the government is talking about in terms of waste management. I have seen the VIOs and I've seen local government officials oblivious of what the state government or the federal government is talking about the environment, because the information failed to cascade down to the relevant agencies of government, relevant officials of government, and so on, because it is not revenue generating policy. That is my challenge. So what needs to be done is for the government and the operators of these laws and policies, those who formulate these laws, to ensure that when they formulate a policy, they must give heed to the fact that that policy must cascade down. They must ensure implementation. I have seen over time that the only one the government gives, monitors, and ensures its implementation is when it has to do with taxation and revenue generation. Beyond that, so what needs to be done is for the relevant offices or agencies to ensure that the policies they formulate cascades down.
All right, Ambassador, your last submission will take us to talking about the necessity of environmental impact assessment report, which ideally businesses are supposed to do when it comes to giving a picture of what will be the impact of citing an industry in an environment and the social responsibilities. But you observe that most businesses, they are nonchalant when it comes to even doing this report or even implementing it. I would like to have your observation as regards this approach to doing this kind of report and even the implementation. What can be done to ensure that once this kind of report is done, environmental impact assessment is done, proper implementation is also done to ensure that you mitigate the effect of that on the host community. You are aware of what is playing out in the Niger Delta as a result of industrial activities and all that. Talk to us how this can be managed to achieve proper sustainability.
I think in the case of such issues as the environmental impact assessment and so on, the disposition of our leaders, of our government, I'll still, because the box stops on their table, the government, because they are the ones that model policies, they formulate policies, and we follow their footsteps. And the disposition of our government, when I say government, includes the federal, the state, the local government, and people in positions of leadership, both appointed and elected. Their disposition is that they know it all. Their body language is that once they get appointed or once they get elected, then their position, their views supersedes that is how it should go. That is government policy. That is how government wants it. And at the end, the people who will who bear the brunt of this, who generate the waste or who engage in the activities, rebel without saying that they are rebelling against that policy, because the government or policy formulators do not carry the people along. Policies are generated by governments without regards to the locations and places where these things will be executed or implemented. So you find out that the need for environmental impact assessment is one of those important policies that becomes victim to the body language of the government and the governed. It is not only the environmental impact assessment policy that becomes victim. Most policies of government fall victim of the fight, the unwritten fight, the unseen fight between the government and the governed. And we understand the state of the nation today. So in place of that policy, money exchanges hands. And that is the reason why what ought to be done is usually not done. So what do we do to get around this situation? Environmental impact assessment is critical. It is fundamental, because without it, you can cite an industry, a facility in an environment that it will not be suitable for. And at the end, it will cause more harm to the people, to the community, and to the general human environment beyond what is anticipated, just because you fail to carry out that. So I will urge the government that once it has to do with the community, with the human environment, please, you do not know it all. Carry the people along. You may have made a campaign promise to execute a particular project. The fact that you made a campaign promise and when it comes to implementation, different issues crop up. You must get back to the people. I made a promise to build a dam here. But I think now that I'm in office and I need to implement this policy, I want to get your views. You must get professionals. It is not in all cases that government officials or government representatives are the best professionals. Sometimes the best professionals reside in the corporate environment. They are outside the government. So when government insists on executing or implementing a particular policy like the EIA through their officials, the home people, the community dwellers may protest it. So I will urge the government in this case that for these things to work, the government and its officials or its agencies do not know it all. There are professionals everywhere that can be embraced. And at the end of the day, both the government and the people and the human environment will be better for it. So I think that is the challenge we have, and that is my suggestion. I believe in my views is the way to go in resolving this challenge, by government making sure that the people are carried along. Many times it is the people that chase away government officials because they were not carried along, because the policies were formulated within government agencies, and at the end, they are implemented by government agencies without regards to the people who are to take benefit of it, without regards to the environment. I have seen instances where EIA's environmental impact assessments are done in government offices without a visit to the locals. I have seen such instances. So I put every blame at the doorstep of the government because its officials do not know it all.
Now, for people to be able to comply or businesses to comply, they say when the purpose of a thing is not known, then abuse is inevitable. What are some of the irresponsible environmental practices that are done by businesses or that could be done by businesses and its impact? Let's look at that.
I do not get it.
So we've been talking about responsible environmental responsibility of businesses. So if we flip
That's
it,
true.
then we have environmental irresponsibility. Now, looking at that, what are some of the irresponsible practices that you've seen or we find? It may not be common to our environment. It may be common to environments that businesses engage in that should be discontinued.
Yes, foremost, I have seen businesses, corporate businesses build, for instance, uh, engage in the construction of their head offices and sundry structures like that without regards to the right of way of the citizens. I've seen most of the drainages we have seen blocked. We are actually as a result of constructions going on around the vicinity, and cubes of sand or gravel, building materials are piled up between the road and the building. When they are done with the building, you find out that all the remnants of their building materials that were left in the gutters and drainages were not scooped up. That is a challenge. So when they build without regards to building control rules and laws, when they build without regards to uh, uh, government specifications and things like that, those are some of the irresponsible acts of corporate organizations. I think because of land space, we have seen corporate organizations become rascally in terms of uh, their use of their immediate environment. You see bank buildings that do not have parking spaces. So the bank customers and bank staffs now have to park on the road. Yes, it exists. And because they are rendering important services, there's nothing anybody can do about it. Beyond that, we have seen organizations, especially religious organizations, turn the motorways to praying grounds. We have seen for the Muslim ones. We have seen the Christian ones, their overflow into the roads, and they constitute the entire place into a nuisance. So religious organizations do that. It is irresponsible. It is irresponsible. If the government were to be up and do it, we can't turn our roads into prayer grounds, and we can't turn our entire environment into prayer meeting. You see churches use the entire space, regardless of public convenience. That is grossly irresponsible of organizations. And we have seen organizations that are, let's take for instance the PHCF, indiscriminately disconnecting people. It is grossly irresponsible. That one person is not able to pay or has failed to pay his PHCF is not a reason why the entire streets or the entire neighborhood will go into darkness. That is grossly irresponsible. So there are lots of irresponsible activities. We have seen corporate organizations, turn neighboring compounds or, into their own, because nobody takes responsibility for monitoring. So I think what should be done in this case is for us to become more responsible, call on government and agencies, call on corporate organizations and individuals. Today we have extended producer responsibility for different sectors, but we are not talking about extended government responsibilities and extended citizens' responsibilities. All of us have a part to play. And for me, even the citizens should play oversight on government.
Okay, if you can hear me. This school of thought that believes that 70% of businesses fail in or has a tendency to fail in their first 5 years. Now, as an experienced entrepreneur or business owner, I would like you to advise on what could be the kind of strategies businesses need to put in place to achieve sustainability.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. I think because most businesses, especially startups and small businesses, because they are the ones that usually fail in the first 5 years, because most of them were established just to make ends meet, they usually will fail when they stop meeting their expectations. Most startups, most businesses are created just to make ends meet. They were not intentionally and deliberately formulated and given birth to. For those that are created intentionally as a business, it usually will have a gestation period. My business presently has the potential or potentialities to become bigger than what it is now. But following our business development plan, we should be at the level where we are now, for now, even though we have the capacity to scale up. So we follow our business development plan. So I will encourage those who want to go into business to understand and agree, be deliberate about their reason for going into the business. If it is just to do some importation and make some money and live good life, is a different concept entirely, likely to fail after 5 years. But I believe to a very large extent that businesses that we are deliberately and intentionally created and given birth to, they will survive because even their downtime is calculated into the establishment policies. So I think that is the reason. Yes, Nigeria has fallen into difficult times and it is so difficult to run a business now. It is so difficult to run a business now. We all agree. I understand that because I do business. I know the cost of diesel now. I know the cost of transportation now. Everything has more than tripled in prices, and businesses did not foresee this. But my point is that if the business is intentionally designed and sustainability is integrated into the concept at the inception, when shocks like we're experiencing in Nigeria now, when such shocks come, the business, even though it may not have envisaged 100% shocks, will be able to withhold or withstand 50% of the shock. So things might be shaky, but it will not go underground because it has foundations. Foundations that we are clear at inception that there will be downtimes and there will be uptimes. So if you follow through with your business development plan, that is why funding organizations or the banks or things like that will usually ask for the business plan. So businesses that are established based on concrete strategies will usually survive despite the odds. Those that will fail because they were not started intentionally. I think that is what we have here in Nigeria now.
All right, talking about funds, there are some businesses that have gone green or are in the sustainability business that are more open or have the chance to secure funding from international organizations. Could you speak to such businesses and what are the benefits of that? What are the benefits a business can get from being environmentally responsible? Environmentally responsible.
I like the concept of green funds and I push for it, but usually I do not like the concept of funding left, right, and center because funding is not the primary ingredient that a business needs. I will beg to argue on that point. A business that is fund dependent, what business do they do? No. So yes, there are funding opportunities, and for businesses to be able to exploit and explore those funding opportunities, they need to have certain fundamentals in place, because the funders are looking out for something. There is a purpose for the fund, be it a loan or a grant or venture capital. There is a purpose. And you must streamline and design your business in a way that it becomes attractive to those. If your business is attractive to the bankers, they will likely fund your business. If the concept of your proposal is attractive to a international funding agency, they will likely support that business. But what I am saying is that beyond funding, because what is necessary is the idea. What is important is the idea. How novel is the idea? How innovative is the idea? What is the creativity you are bringing to the table? What difference are you offering? There are lots of news media organizations. What makes your own different? When you have such ideas well captured in your documents, and you begin to structure your businesses in a way that the finances are, financial management is well laid out, different structures are properly laid out, then it becomes attractive to funders. When you apply for loan, most likely they are going to give to you. It is not about the money, the quantum of funds in your account. If you have 10 million naira or 20 million naira stagnant in your account, it is not going out, it is not coming in. It will not be attractive to a bank. They want to see the inflow and the outflow. They want to see what you are doing and the structure you are implementing. So if you're a business and all you think about is how to raise funds, when you have not structured the business properly, when you have not put in place certain policies and strategies that will help the business withstand at a time like this in Nigeria, then you are pursuing funding left, right, and center. In the first place, when the funds come, it will fritter away because there is no stronghold, there is no strong foundation for the business. So I will not encourage young startups. I will not encourage young business people to go about in pursuit of funds. I'll ask them to get skilled.
Would you encourage
Ask
them
them
to
to get
Why would you encourage the businesses to be environmentally responsible? What benefits can they get from that?
There are so much benefits that we can get, that a business can get from being environmentally responsible. Number one benefit for environmental responsibility is the fact that we will live in a very humane, green, and sustainable, very clean, green, and sustainable environment. Everybody likes environment that is humane and they're welcoming. That is number one thing. That's number one and fundamental reason why everybody should. And now, if you do not go green, if you do not become sustainable in your business, you will not be contributing, because minus all the efforts of different organizations in this regard, by now we should be wading through waste across the city of Lagos. But it is not so, because businesses are accepting sustainability and they are going green. Every hand is on deck. We are all involved to ensure and to complement the effort of the government in making our environment clean, green, and sustainable. Furthermore,
Thank you so much for your submissions to the conversation today. This is as much as time will permit us to take. Maybe other times we could expand the conversation beyond this point. It's a wrap on the show today. We've been talking with Ambassador Obuesi Phillips, who is the CEO and also the founder of SWIP. And we've been looking at profitability and environmental responsibility of businesses. I'm Blessing H. The show returns tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. Doing sure to be part of it by watching and spread the word that the IFM1, the I 104.9 FM is here in Lagos, where business meets bits. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, it's also important for you to know that the conversation continues on our social media platform and that Market Insight comes up at 11. Early Exchange returns tomorrow, bigger and better. better. I am Femi Ayodele. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.